Now it's time to place your page, your layout, on a level playing field, if you will. That's my terminology, in different browsers. So what we need to do is apply a CSS reset, and I prefer to use Meyer reset. And if you hear any strange noises in the background, it's my cat destroying a chair while it's playing. So don't be surprised if you hear cat noises. All right, with that being said, where was I? Oh, Meyer reset. So let's go ahead and we will do a search. Meyer reset. I use 2.0 myself, so we can get it here. You can go to Meyer Web. It's really up to you. And you can read more about the reset. And let's just get rid of all this stuff here. And I'm going to copy the code, which should be open source. And I like this because it's really simple and straightforward. So let's go ahead and copy. And here is our layout. And you'll notice there's this space, and we're going to deal with all of that. So at the very beginning, and we're still going to keep all of our CSS in the head of the document. Okay, so it's going to be document level for now. So let's paste, and then we will save, and you will see now that that space, that margin has been taken away. And if you go through, you basically will see that all of these very typical elements have had their margin, padding, border, font size, okay, font and vertical align baseline all set. All right, and then there's some other styles here, and you're going to see that they're just all of these block level elements are going to be told to display block. The body, block quote. Anyway, you can read through this and you just get a sense that what we're trying to do is place all of our HTML elements, most common ones, we're giving them all the same styles, or we're giving them styles, so their styles are taken over from the defaults, which might be applied from the different browsers. Now, I don't see the one. I'm going to go ahead and add the universal selector, and we're going to go with CSS3 for calculating our CSS box model. So let's just do that here. And you'll notice the styles, the formatting is different than what I've been doing up here. I'll clean all of that up later. All right, so let's go ahead and add our universal selector. And we will set our box sizing, all right, to border box. So this is, make sure I have my semicolon. So this is this is the CSS3 approach, okay? All right, I'm going to pause the video here for just a moment. Now, let's scroll up to the top here, and we see that our font size is being set to 100%. And this will deal with kind of funky spaces that happen after images inside of our elements. But that can also kind of create some issues also. But I'm going to go ahead, and I see font size is 100%, but I might want to deal with rem. So I'm going to go ahead and let's go HTML, and we will set our font size to what is the default browser height for type at 16 pixels. So now later on, or when I start using or I start adding my typefaces, or I start adding type, I should say, I'm going to likely use rem. So now one rem will be 16 pixels. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and save. And in this next step, what we will do is we will link all of our CSS. All right. And we'll get rid of our CSS from the head of the document. And all of our pages will be linked, in this case, to a single CSS style sheet, which can create a few issues which you will have to be very aware of. You'll have to be very careful with. We'll talk about that here in a moment. So I'm going to go up to, I say I'm gonna a lot. I'm going to go up and create a new document. And the document will be CSS. We will create. Let's save our document. And I will call this primer.css because my HTML pages are going to be primer 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's just what I'm calling them for the demo. So this will be primer CSS. And let's go ahead and save in our root level folder where our HTML files, where they are. So we're going to save. And I'm going to go back to my HTML and I'm going to select all of the CSS. I'm not selecting the style tags. And let's just go ahead and cut and then delete the style tags. Save. Let's go to primer CSS and paste everything inside. And I'm not going to worry about the formatting. I'll clean that up later. All right, so while we're here, we are going to drop down to our CSS styles for our block level elements, which are our structure. And I am going to change the heights all back to auto for right now, because I am going to let the content establish the height of the elements. So let's go ahead and copy auto. And in the height, we will set all of the heights back to auto. Again, I'm doing this so the content we place inside will establish the heights. And that will be a lot easier for us in creating our responsive layout. So let me do the height here to auto, and we will save. All right, let me pause here a second. Now, everything is zeroed out. We have all of our CSS in this external primer.css file. So let's go ahead and close this file. And we no longer have any CSS inside of our primer 01 HTML page. So if we go back and look at our layout, everything is gone because our block level elements are all basically collapsing on themselves because there's nothing inside. Okay? We'll begin to see the colors again as we begin to add content to those areas. All right. Now, let's go ahead and link our CSS file. So I tend to link my CSS after the title. So we will create link and we will use an href and we are going to add primer. Okay, So we're not nesting our CSS. It's in the block level, in the root level. So soon as I type in a P, I'll see primer CSS. And if your editor doesn't do that, you'll just have to type out the name of your file and its extension. Now, the relationship for this CSS file is a style sheet. So we will select style sheet, and the type of document we're creating. So the type equals text CSS, and then this is an open or an empty element, so we only have to complete the link with the greater than sign. We now have linked our CSS. So as soon as I save, we should see our file linked up here. So let's go ahead and save, and we now have our source code and we have our CSS linked to our source code. Now, if I save and go back, there's still nothing here because we haven't placed any content. So what we'll do first is we will add what will be the navigation. Now, let me go back real quick before we end here and just point out that at one point, all four Primer 1 through Primer 4 HTML pages will be linked to this CSS file. So you're going to be you need to be very aware that if you have elements and you're targeting those elements with the same tag name, with the same ID or select or class, and in one of your HTML documents, and you are targeting that element in one of the other HTML documents, when you change that tag, ID, or class, it will affect all four pages. So if you need to do something unique in one of the pages, then make sure you are creating you're using a tag, an ID, a class, or a combination, okay, which is very specific. Otherwise, it can be very frustrating that you work on a page for an hour and then you realize what you've done has affected all of the other pages. And then you go fix those pages and it went back and undid what you have done on one of the previous pages. So that is something that you need to be very aware of. Make sure that your tags, IDs, classes are unique if you need to do something very specific in one of the HTML documents and you don't want that to carry over to the other pages. Okay? All right, so we now have our CSS externalized and linked. What we will do next is take a very simple approach for creating our navigation.